This video is not for you smart people out there, for people like me who are curious, right? I'm always thinking, where does the waste go on these cruise ships, right? Okay, I'm one person, say I'm taking a 10-day cruise, I'm eating twice a day, I'm making trash happen, garbage happen somewhere, right? Sometimes you gotta flush the toilet, so I'm thinking, where is everything going here? And then that me times 2,000 people, 2,000 things happening, where is the waste going? Let's get right into it. Well, first there's gray water, G-R-A-Y water, right? This is water from the sinks, your showers, your laundries, and your kitchens. It's typically treated on board using advanced filtration systems before being discharged into the ocean. This is interesting. So this discharge though, right? The discharge cannot be discharged until you're 3 nautical miles from the shore. That's just the regulations out there. That's how that works, right? So you can't discharge anything until you're 3 nautical miles from shore, okay? So now I'm saying, okay, got that part, gray water, understand that. So what is black water? This is sewage from toilets and medical facilities. So cruise ships have onboard sewage treatment plants that process black water to meet or even exceed the standards set by the International Maritime Organization, right? So after treatment, the water can then be legally discharged into the ocean. But get this, 12 nautical miles from the shore, usually, right? It's gotta be 12 nautical miles from the shore. There we go. I'm learning something. I'm learning, right? And I hope you are too. Let's keep on going. Okay, now solid waste. What do they do with solid waste? So solid waste incineration, right? So non-hazardous solid waste like food scraps, paper, and some plastics are often incinerated on board. Yes, on board. The ash produced is then disposed of at sea or brought back to port for disposal, depending on local regulations. And then also too, for solid waste, right? Recycling. Cruise ships typically have a comprehensive recycling program to manage materials like aluminum, glass, and certain types of plastics. Then these materials are sorted and stored on board before being offloaded at port facilities for recycling. Wow, it's amazing here. It's amazing. And then we even have for solid waste, landfill waste, right? This is waste that cannot be incinerated or recycled. So things like certain kinds of plastics and hazardous materials, those are stored on board and then they're offloaded at the ports where it is then sent to the appropriate disposal facilities, which include landfills, right? So if you ever taken a cruise before, it's really kind of a sad sight sometimes, right? You'll see people have piles of food on their plate and they throw away like half that plate. People get kind of, especially the first few days, if it's their first 2 cruises, first cruise, they get kind of crazy with the food. They pile stuff on their food, on their plates because their eyes are bigger than the mouth, and they, oh my gosh, I gotta have this, gotta have that. And what happens, you get like 5 pounds of food there, and over 3 pounds of food are gonna go to waste. So I'm wondering, what happens with that food, right? So here we go, food waste. Pulping, pulping. Food waste is often ground into a slurry through a process called pulping. The pulp food waste can then be legally discharged at sea. But again, the ship must be 12 nautical miles from the coast. Food waste number 2, right? What else do they do with food waste? Composting. So some cruise ships have composting systems to reduce food waste, which is then offloaded and processed at suitable facilities on shore. I had no idea a ship would do composting. Very cool. So then I was thinking, okay, I got those 3. What about things that are hazardous? What do you do with like batteries or chemicals? So here we go. So hazardous waste, right? Chemicals, batteries, medical waste. These are stored securely on board and are never discharged at sea. These materials are then offloaded at port and taken to a specialized facility for safe disposal, which I love that part. That was really cool, right? And then I'm thinking, okay, well, food, waste, water. Okay, we got that part, right? What about the air? So here we go. Air emissions and scrubber waste. So here we go. To meet emission standards, many ships use scrubbers to remove sulfur oxides from exhaust gases. The waste generated from scrubbers, which can include hazardous substances, is either treated on board or stored for disposal at port. So again, even the air, right? Even the waste that can go into the air is scrubbed. I love this stuff, right? So then I'm thinking, How about the bilge water? So bilge water is water that's like at the lowest part of the ship, right? It's usually oils in there, all sorts of contaminants, right? What do you do with bilge water? Most ships have bilge water, right? So what do you do with that? So cruise ships use oil water separators to remove the oil, ensuring that only clean water is discharged into the sea. The separated oil is then stored and offloaded at port for proper disposal. So I mean, they have these problems already kind of figured out, right? I'm thinking all along, well, how do they do this and how do they do that? But they have it all figured out, right? And here's what I learned too: cruise ships are heavily regulated by international laws like MARPOL, marine pollution, and must adhere to strict guidelines for waste disposal to minimize their environmental impact. However, some ships, some companies, some places in the world, depending on where the ships comes from, depends on how heavy or how light they'll be in compliance with environmental regulations. Okay, so it's really interesting though. But overall, I didn't know about the sewage wastewater, how they did that. I mean, I didn't know either. Like the food waste, they pulp it, they compost it. Very interesting. So there you go, you guys. Right? If you're like me, and you're just curious how these things work, and you're not some big brainiac, you just say, man, how does that work? Well, there you go. I hope that helps you guys out for the ships and what happens with your waste. Take care. Have a good